Hello there, and welcome back to LTC Heroes Live by Experience Care. My name is Peter Murphy Lewis, and I'm your host. I'm really excited today to be talking to some of the leaders from LeadingAge. Some of you already might know Deek help me, Deek.
You keep butchering it, Cato, but it's okay.
Cato, that's all right. It makes people know that we're doing it live at least. Deke, thank you for joining me again. I, as I was preparing for this, I was remembering the first time that I was nervous. I'm extremely dyslexic, so I butcher names a lot. But I was nervous because I read your book and was extremely impressed by it, and that's why I had you on the podcast back when you and I met in Georgia at the Georgia Healthcare Association. So I wanted to have you back, but also have you some peers invited. Would you please introduce yourself and introduce the rest?
Thank you, Peter, for having me. Very, very proud and happy to be amongst this crew. I learned a long time ago that the adage of behind every good man is a good woman, and I've had that handled at home through my wife for a long time now. But I also learned professionally that surrounding every good professional are good females around them as well. And proud to have this bunch today. Katie Smith-Sloan, who is the president and CEO of LeadingAge, who I've had the pleasure to work with. LeadingAge is a 5,000 plus member association, rarely dealing with work around the aging services. And then Ginny Helms, who is the president and CEO of the local affiliate of LeadingAge, doing a similarly great job. And then a great friend of mine, Gwen Hardy, who is the COO of Presbyterian Homes of Georgia, who not only has life plan communities in Georgia, but does a lot in the affordable care housing space as well. So great women in their own right. And thank you all for being part of this today.
I appreciate it, Deke. And just to get the ball rolling, a couple things that I want to make sure that we talk about. I want to talk about the theme for LeadingAge, and I'll ask you, Katie, to chime in on that. But one of the things that I want to talk about is a report that recently came out from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine's Committee on the Quality of Care in Nursing Home. There was some very, very strong language in that report. Some of it was a surprise to me. I'm guessing not all of it was a surprise to you. I would like to know, Katie, what you think coming from that report is going to be included in LeadingAge's national agenda, and what do you think the things that we should be paying attention to next week when we meet in Chattanooga, Tennessee for the Georgia convention?
So, well, thank you, Peter, for the question, and thanks, Steve, for including me today. We were thrilled to see this report finally see the light of day. We were advocating for it long before COVID. It has been almost 40 years since we have taken a hard look at how we support nursing homes in this country from a regulatory perspective. And it's long, long, long overdue. And, the report, I think, underscored the fact that this was needed. It came out by saying that the way in which the nation finances, delivers, and regulates nursing homes is ineffective, inefficient, fragmented, and unsustainable. And we couldn't agree more. So there are lots. It's over 600 pages. There's a lot in there. It's a dense report. But it all falls around 7 major areas of recommendation, including things around staffing requirements and ownership transparency, around accountability, around survey regulation and oversight, and around quality improvement. So lots and lots is in there. In my conversations with the administration, it's pretty clear to me that one of the areas that they're going to move most quickly on is around transparency and accountability. And the White House made that pretty clear even before this report came out, and the report reinforces the importance of that.
Thank you, Katie. Jenny, next week, you all have adopted the same theme from LeadingAge National at the Georgia level, which is momentum. Can you tell me a little bit what that means for LeadingAge and why and how you envision that incorporated in next week's convention?
Yes, sure. Well, first, I'd like to say that LeadingAge Georgia is so incredibly grateful to the leadership that we have with LeadingAge National, with Katie Smith-Sloan and the board, which Deke serves on. And it's our pleasure to carry out the same theme of momentum because we too recognize that it builds on several things. One, from a training standpoint, looking at everything that we can do to build on what we've learned during COVID and what we can do to improve the staffing situation. I think everybody recognizes now that staffing is our first, second, and third biggest challenge. And so through our education and our advocacy efforts at the conference, we'll be addressing that. We're really grateful that Robin Stone, who is with LeadingAge National and is just a national expert on staffing, will be with us for our town hall meeting, and we'll hear what she sees as solutions for staffing issues, and we'll engage our members so that they can contribute to ideas for addressing staffing and what we might do on an advocacy level to support the national efforts.
I had a little bit of glitch in the internet. Jenny, thanks for kind of the overview. I want to keep going back and forth because I'm sure that there's definitely some overlap between the report and what's coming up. Deke, I'm sure you've seen at least the press release, and as Katie said, it's a serious report. I think it was 603 pages. Is there anything from that report that stood out to you that you were surprised that got in there, or anything that you said, this is timely, we need to get on this today?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Katie. I don't think there are any shocks in the report. I do think we need to see this report in context of time and space. And I think one of the things that we have been careful in not doing is not villainizing anyone through this report or through anything else. Because I think the state of nursing homes in this nation is not necessarily the fault of nursing homes, but it is the fault of a broken system that worked for a certain time, right? It worked for a time, but it just does not work now. It is chronically underfunded. Yes, we know that. And we know several of the issues involved with nursing homes, but we need to understand that nursing homes are only a small part of that aging continuum, right? So we have a lot of other areas within aging, other than assisted living, independent living. We have issues related to affordable housing for individuals as they age. Gwen knows this probably much more than me because she deals specifically in that space as well. So as we see this report, obviously we see it in the light of nursing homes. We see now is the time for the momentum around it, but we got to remember that nursing homes exist within a continuum. We're not existing solely or not alone in that continuum.
Gwen, kind of, moving over to what Deke said, what are the issues that are coming up in the last quarter, and specifically from this report, whether it be accountability or transparency, that you're most interested in, and what do you think will be kind of the talk in the hallways when we meet up next week at LeadingAge Georgia?
Well, as it has already been said, Peter, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part, and certainly to be with my colleagues that are here today. But I do think that workforce development is what we're going to talk about in the halls. Mm-hmm. That is the key for us being able to provide the quality of care that the nonprofit sector is known for to senior adults. So that's where, and things such as, what are we going to do? Are we looking at robotics as a way to be able to assist maybe with phone calls to families or something that would take some of that burden? But what will we do to be able to attract those caregivers to our industry, even at an early age? What will we do in high school, early college, to be able to get those folks with us? And then as we look at the affordable housing piece and go beyond that, you look at the needs for seniors. It's more than just a roof over their head, even though that is needed and funding for that is needed. But basic food, medicine, transportation, all of those areas from an affordable housing perspective are really important. And as we look at the mental health challenges that we deal with more often now in those areas, those are key parts of the continuum for us to look at. So as Deke had already said, not only the skilled nursing component, but the assisted living, the personal care, we look at affordable housing, we look at adult day, just the entire continuum that helps to serve senior adults.
Katie, one of the quotes from the press release, or maybe it was the article in the McKnights, it says that there is a serious underinvestment in ensuring quality of care at the national level. And Deke, feel free to follow up after Katie gives her input. The national level, what are we hearing from DC? Are we expecting anything change in 2022? There was also some specific recommendations in here that Congress needs the full authority, and all of the federal agencies need full authority to make sure that they can include long-term care if we ever have an emergency like we have in the last 2 years. Katie?
Oh, there's so much to that, Peter. But I think that sort of your first question, which is really about ensuring quality, you can't have quality unless you pay for it. And we have, we're chronically underfunded as a sector. Deke pointed that out, and it's absolutely the case. But there's a direct correlation between what we invest in, which means what we value as a nation, and what the results that we get at the other end. And quality suffers when you don't pay for it. But the other thing I would say about quality is that our system of quality oversight right now is one based on punishment. It's based on an assumption that what we're doing is there's a problem and we need to be punished for it. And what we need to do is completely change that paradigm and focus on a culture of quality improvement. Assume the best, assume we want to do the best, and help us do the best that we can. And there is a science around quality improvement that is not focused on punishment, but it's really focused on improvement, understanding root causes, analyzing the problem, addressing the problem, and then checking to see if we've actually solved the problem. That's what we need. So we really do need to flip our entire regulatory frame around nursing homes on its head and look at this differently.
But Deke, you before we hit record and went live, we were specifically saying, the report. If even if you just read the first 5 pages, and I passed it to my brother who doesn't work in long-term care, I think he would come away with the observation. It basically saying the system is broken. Is there optimism? I know, Deke, you've recently traveled to DC. Is there optimism, or where do we need to go to move from a 602-page report that says it's broken to say we're in the right direction?
Yeah, so I think there's more optimism probably now than ever. Again, going back to that team momentum, I think if we do not get this done now, we're never going to get this done, because I think everyone is so focused on this. I think, to your point, we need to stop pointing fingers, and we need providers, regulatory, community to work together to solve this. I do think the problem is going to come down to funding. It's going to come down to money and how we do this. Whether you look at staffing, there's a correct correlation between that and how we are paid, how we're reimbursed. Likewise, Katie just said quality. Infrastructure in our homes are a huge issue. Nursing homes with the multiplicity of semi-private rooms, which we saw during COVID, and any infectious disease would allow it to simply spread. That's going to take money, and it's going to take investment in order for us to change those things. So I think the bigger call is going to have to be for that true wise investment, and to move the focus away from simply finger pointing. Yeah, we know nursing homes are broken. That's not great news. That's not new news. But to fix it, we are going to have to have deliberate investment in our sector.
Deke, one of the things that I remember you saying when we were offline, you were speaking to my boss at Experience Care. You said one of the things that's unique about nonprofits is you all have some extra flexibility to solve some of these staffing issues that some of the for-profits either don't have the margins or they don't have the interest of doing. Are there anything that you are doing, or even Gwen could speak to, that you all feel from the staffing point of view, you're like, this is working. We have some optimism. We've seen some improvement in either retention or some recruitment that you're excited, just staying on the staffing issue.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in, and I know Gwen would certainly follow me. Someone said the word culture early, and I think nonprofits certainly demonstrate that culture in how they care for their staff. I think that issue is fundamental to the staffing crisis we're in now. I think as a society and certainly as nursing homes, we have gotten it wrong. We have worked under the mantra that the resident is always right. You know, I grew up in this industry hearing that and learning that. And while it is true in many ways, by doing this, I think we have understated the importance of our direct caregivers. And COVID showed us that. So I think what we do, and I know we try to do it a lot at AG Roads, is to instill that culture of caring, not only for our residents, but for our staff, who are certainly primary stakeholders in our care being successful. Gwen?
I totally agree with you, Dick, on that. It's very important that we invest, and that's what we try to do at Presbyterian Homes. And we've had a long history of great retention because of the fact that we really treat people the way we want to be treated, the way we want our residents to be treated. So what we invest in our staff is exactly what is given to our residents. And so whether it be recognizing their birthday, something as simple as that, all the way up to paying livable wages for them. We have a lot of single parents who work with us, how we work with those flexible schedules to make things happen. And then a big part of our culture, we have a motto at Presbyterian Homes of good skills, but a great attitude. We have the resources to be able to train those skills, but the attitude comes from the heart. And so we do a lot surrounding training with our beliefs and values and really allow our employees to express their passion for caring for senior adults. And truly, when you work in this, it is a calling to work with senior adults. And so our employees are able to express that in multiple ways to our residents. And that's something so important, is to really show them how valued they are and allow them to take ownership and be a part of your organization. That makes a total difference in our culture at Presbyterian Homes. But that's something that's important, is really how we treat that staff, how we work with that staff member to be able to provide an environment where they feel great about giving the standard of excellence that is high quality.
I want to, Katie, I want to make a small transition in relation to it. I don't see the connection, but maybe there is a connection moving from staffing over to transparency. There was a press release that came out of the White House in about 6 weeks ago, and it specifically seemed like it was aimed at private equity. And through this report, I'm going to quote something that says, they're recommending collecting, auditing, and making publicly available detailed facility level data on finances, operations, and ownership of all nursing homes. Now, I've been to a number of conventions, and I often hear from nonprofit leaders that they feel very comfortable with this. Have you heard anyone from the private sector who's pushing back on this quite a bit? Is this likely of happening in this administration?
Well, I think to your last question, I think it absolutely is. I think having met with Secretary Becerra as well as Administrator Chiquita Brooks-LaSure, this is very much on their radar. They've got the marching orders from the White House. And, you know, the reason why this is very comfortable for nonprofits is because we've been transparent for years. We file Form 990s every year with the IRS because we're required to as part of our tax exempt status. And that's a public document. And I think the connection that you're trying to make between transparency and staffing is, how are we spending the federal dollars and the state dollars that we are entrusted with? How is that being spent? Is it being spent on, to Gwen's point, livable wages, on training, on creating career paths, on providing quality care, or is it being spent on something that is not quite so resident or staff centric? I think that's one of the goals of the transparency. The other is just who owns the place, and there's a lot of merger and acquisition activity in the nursing home space, and so who owns it? You know, what's happening? What transitions are taking place? The public deserves to know. Families deserve to know. Regulators deserve to know, and the residents themselves deserve to know.
Jenny, I want to talk a little bit about the convention next week, and you and I will be meeting together. Probably maybe not Sunday, but we'll be meeting a week from today. I was looking through the program here, and there's a lot going on. You've put together the program for many years. I know during COVID, it was probably suspended at least once or twice. What are you excited specifically about? Any challenges or any opportunities that you know from this next week, the 3 days that we'll be getting together, that are going to be empowering or educating for your members at LeadingAge Georgia?
Yes, I think that we have a great committee that worked on planning this program, and that it has different topics that'll be good for all of our different member types, all of our different provider types. And I also think that when our members get together and they share ideas and they share best practices and they put out what their challenge is or what keeps them up at night, they have a whole community there that's happy to share solutions. And I think that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to. I think everybody is really hungry to be together and to share ideas and learn from each other. I know they've been checking in with each other via phone and email and text, but it's not quite the same as being together.
I want to take a moment to thank Deke. While Deke and I met at Georgia Healthcare Association, he's also one of the reasons that you and I met, Jenny. And that's the reason LTC Heroes is going to go and support LeadingAge Georgia and do as much advocacy. One of the things specifically that Jenny said to me right away is she said, Peter, I want to make sure the interviews that we're doing with the keynote speakers and with the board members and the participants, we're highlighting what they're doing for their staff, and we're changing the perception of long-term care. Deke, thank you so much for taking LTC Heroes there. I'm not going to be there in person, but I know some of your team is going, and I'm sure you'll be watching some of the materials offline. Deke, why has LeadingAge been so important for AG Rhodes and your leadership there?
Yeah, well, we AG Rhodes has been LeadingAge members for a long time. Obviously, we also are members of Georgia Healthcare. I think the role that LeadingAge certainly has played for us to be around like-minded, like-mission organizations is where the difference really is. Just to be around people like Gwen who run really similar mission organizations to us, who deal with similar day-to-day issues than us. It's great to have that collective that you can rely on. Similarly, LeadingAge National, Katie has put together an awesome team that I boast about all the time, that are not only taking on salient issues in the nursing home and salient issues related to aging, but salient issues related to society, like issues like racism, issues like classism as well. So nothing but great things to say about what LeadingAge National and LeadingAge Georgia has done for our industry, and certainly specifically for AG Rhodes as well.
Gwen, you're obviously been to more conventions than I have. I've only been at long-term care almost 2 years. One of the things that I learned, and I'm going to ask you what you've learned from your conventions in the past. One of the things I learned from going to the Missouri convention was specifically what were the two issues they were focused on. And I went with them on Advocacy Day to the Capitol. They were focused on reimbursements, and they were also focused on some of the gouging of prices from agency. What is it that you are focused on inside of your organization, and what do you think of the topics that will come up next week?
Thank you. Most definitely, obviously, reimbursement is at the top because it correlates with everything that we've been talking about today and how we fund that staff and attract that staff to us in order to be able to provide that service. So I think those are the topics. Having been in this industry for 28 years, I've seen a lot of conventions and I've seen a lot of things, but I think that the things that will be talked about next week at the LeadingAge Georgia convention and what has been talked about just recently at the LeadingAge Peak Summit was really what are we doing to be able to help these standards of excellence, to maintain this staff and to have this momentum of moving forward, and how we care for seniors. It's the passion that we are able to display and to really share our love, our dedication, our devotion to these individuals that have reached these golden years, and who more deserves the care and the advocacy that we're able to put forward for them. So I think those are the things that we're really looking at, is just how we move forward. Coming out of a 2-year pandemic, and how do we let people know we're here. This industry, this not-for-profit sector is here. We're ready to care. We're able to care. And we have stood the test of time and continue to do so for our residents. But we do need that assistance with reimbursements so that we can carry things forward for our seniors into the future. Our legacy should be that we really made a difference and that we were able to come together as a nation to provide the care to our residents that they're so deserving of.
Thank you. I want to transition, Katie. I'm going to ask you specifically because of your role as President and CEO of LeadingAge. I feel blessed every week to speak to leaders like those of you who are on the call because I just absorb like a sponge. So I want to ask you, what's your favorite part of running the most important nonprofit association in long-term care? And then I'm going to ask you, what's your biggest challenge right now?
So my favorite part is the ability to work with people like Ginny and Deke and Gwen, people who have just enormous hearts and passion for the work they do and lead with such purpose. I mean, it's truly an honor to be with them in spirit or together in person or on Zoom. What a joy. The biggest challenge is navigating us out of COVID. This has been a nightmare for the last 2 years, and for everybody, for the people that work in our organizations, for my staff, for you, for all of us. And so how do we come out stronger and more still with a sense of purpose and not cynicism and not anger? And I think that's the challenge our society faces, and certainly we're just a microcosm of that. I think we will. I know we will, given the folks that you get to interact with. The long-term care sector is an amazing group of individuals who've chosen to devote their lives to this important work.
Thank you. I sensed that was going to be your answer because in my 2 years here, it's been interacting with leaders. I wondered if you had the same sentiment. You've been with LeadingAge National for some time. As we start to wrap up, Ginny, I want to ask you if you have any final words. I'm excited to hear what is on the program. Do you have any loose ends, or is everything ready for next week?
I think everything's ready for next week, and I think that the report shows that we have a lot of work to do, and we're going to build on the momentum of that report and try to make some changes. And I think the public doesn't realize that, the federal government is the biggest funder of nursing homes. And with Medicaid, they pay like 80 to 85% in most states for most beds. And so it's going to take lifting on the state level as well as across the nation. And we have great leadership with LeadingAge. And, like for our affordable housing members, they're part of this because what we see too is that a lot of times affordable housing residents rock along in place and age in place. And then when they need more care, a lot of times they go to nursing homes. So we need to make it right for them for when they need them as well.
I appreciate that. And I learned a lot from the report. I don't think I would have read the report had your team not sent that over and your PR team. Next week, we're going to focus on the advocacy of LeadingAge and specifically highlighting what your team's all doing in person. LTC Heroes will be going there, sponsored by AG Roads, to support LeadingAge Georgia. And we'll be interviewing, I think, 8 people, 8 other leaders like yourself. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And I look forward to meeting you in person and sharing this with you over line. Keep up the good work, and thanks for the amazing advocacy you all are doing.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, guys.